What if your family's health history left you fearing you could be gone too soon, just like your loved ones? Well, that was exactly where Glory found herself until she chose to rewrite her health future. Now, aged 65 and thriving, she shares her lifestyle and skincare tips on her YouTube channel, Glory BTV. And today she's going to tell us how she remains glowing, vibrant and healthy in her 60s. I met Glory through a group of women YouTubers that she kindly brings together. And in that group, we support each other and will each other on during a time of big changes on the platform. It means you may not always see my weekly episodes or those of other creators like Glory on your homepage. 2 easy ways to find my new episodes are just doing a search for the channel within YouTube or on Google. If you search The Honest Channel, it will take you directly to my landing page, and I'll always have the latest episode sitting at the top there for you. Or you can head over to my website, honest.scot, scroll down to the bottom of any page to sign up to my newsletter, and I'll email you the links to all my latest content so you don't miss out. But now, let's hear how Glory reclaimed her health future. So, on your channel, you share lots of different tips and insights around looking and feeling good over 50. And I wondered, have you always been a kind of health conscious person, or was there a particular event or stage in your life that kind of marked a turning point for you?
I've not been health conscious all my life. And in fact, growing up as a child, we ate, a lot of processed food. And, I figured someday that could come home to haunt me. But when I was in my 30s, I thought I was living a healthy life. I didn't have any diseases or illnesses. I wasn't taking any medication. And then at the age of 38, Mary Lou Henner came out with a book, and it's all about her diet and her health and all that. And I thought, I think I'm going to buy that. I bought the hardcover, and since then I bought the smaller version and given them to friends. So she's like 8 years older than I am. And she said it took her several years to figure this out and to get her health on track. Now, the thing that really resonated with me as I read her book was that she talked about her parents, and her parents grew up near where my parents grew up. And she talked about the food they had been eating all their lives since they were born. It was the same food my parents were eating. And then her parents died when they were 52 and 58 years old.
Wow.
My dad had his first stroke when he was 53, and he died when he was 57.
Gosh.
So to be a young person and have a sick parent who then dies, and then find someone else who went through the same experience, it's very emotional. So I thought, okay, something's working for her, because she's not going down the same road of bad health and early death that her parents did. So I'm going to try her diet and let's see what happens. I started doing it kind of slowly and implementing it over a period of months. Now, do you want to hear what my first result was?
Well, what was the diet first and foremost? Was it this just
Well,
a kind of sensible
yeah,
eat
yeah.
natural diet, or
It would have been called vegan. Now we're calling it whole plant food,
okay?
because it's low on processed food, but it's vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds, and low on sugar and that kind of thing. And it was a health transformation for her. So about 2 to 3 months in, the biggest change I noticed right off the bat was that I had gone from one bowel movement every 2 or 3 days to 2 or 3 bowel movements every day.
Yes.
So where was all that waste? It was sitting in my body. In fact, Mary Lou has a whole chapter in her book called What's the Poop? Because getting rid of waste in our body is really important, and doing it naturally through food. I wasn't drinking any Metamucil or anything like that.
Yeah.
Those things never really worked for me. But the health transformation, getting there, that was the first big change I noticed. And then over time, just continuing it, I just remained healthy, where people around me my age, relatives, friends, were getting comorbidities, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and those kinds of things where I wasn't. Now, the other thing that she mentioned in her book was another book that I had never heard of because apparently I wasn't going into well, we went to bookstores back then in the 90s. It was a lot of fun. I had never heard of Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. So they came out with these books called Fit for Life prior to Mary Lou Henner's book. So I bought two of them. They were writing about this organization called the American Natural Hygiene Society, which has now changed their name to the National Health Association, NHA. They're actually worldwide, but they are based in the States. And through the National Health Association, I found all kinds of doctors and others, many who were living and eating this way and teaching others, and they're just super healthy. Now, the people who founded that organization, if they were still living, they'd be 130 years old. Okay, so it doesn't make you immortal. It just means you live a longer, healthier life. And when these people, when they died, they didn't die of some horrible disease. They just died in their sleep.
Yeah.
And, one day they're gardening and then the next night they just pass away. And I think that's just a nice way to go instead of being really sick for a decade or even 5 years, at the end of your life. And there are several doctors who I think you'd find fascinating to interview. It's Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and his wife Anne. They're now in their early 90s. Their daughter Jane and their son Rip have been involved. They have books and they have videos, and they're just so healthy. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn has helped many people reverse heart disease. And I think I brought his book. So this is Caldwell Esselstyn's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he has all kinds of patients' examples in here, including their heart scans, where he's worked with them after they've had heart disease, even after they've had bypass surgery. And through diet, they've reversed it. His wife Anne and daughter Jane have cookbooks like this one, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook. They have others now. They're hilarious. They have a YouTube channel.
Oh
They're
gosh,
funny
I've got
now.
to look
Some
them up.
people have said, well, they look old. And I'm like,
Well, in
but
their
they're,
90s.
yeah, or even Jane, but
I
Jane
love
doesn't
to know
color
what
her
these
hair.
people think they're going to look like in their 90s.
They're doing so many sports and activities, and their minds are sharp and they're amazing. Another doctor is Dr. Joel Furman. A lot of people have heard of him because he was on public broadcasting. He has a lot of books. He's very interesting. And then a third one is Dr. Alan Goldhammer, who started the True North Health Center based in California, and they've helped a lot of people get well and then stay well.
Well, there's nothing quite like people who have actually reached that later stage in life who, they get the verification tick because what they've talked about has obviously panned out well for them. So they are of
Right.
particular interest, I think. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting what you say, because I see a lot of it, and I've spoken a little about it on the channel where I will interview somebody super healthy, super fit, super strong. They might be in their 70s. And, one of them was a ninja, actually a world record breaking
Yeah.
ninja. She had a lot of wrinkles from sun
Mhm.
damage. And a lot of people couldn't get past that. But,
I
oh,
saw
but
that
she's
in the
got wrinkles.
comments. I watched that video. I was
I
like, oh, come
know.
on. But on the inside, she's so healthy.
She's so
Yeah.
healthy. And that's what we
Yeah.
get mixed up, I think. That kind of sun
Yeah.
damage, which is,
Hmm.
if you wanted to, you could zap it with a laser or whatever. It's not the end of the world. But
Right.
it doesn't impact the health. The health is internal and so
Right.
key to what
Yeah.
actually aging well looks
Right.
like.
Well, now I'm 65. I don't have any comorbidities. So that means I don't have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes. I have a lot of stress. So that might do me in someday. But right now, and the bonus is that I look younger than my siblings, my cousins, and my classmates. They hate it when I say that, but it's true.
They'll be watching this, the steam coming out their ears right now. So, and you've been following this diet, this plant-based
Mhm.
whole food diet since your late 30s. And that's what is standing you in such good stead. Now,
Mhm.
along the way, there was a little health setback with an osteoporosis diagnosis. Do you want to tell us about that and, how that came around? That must have shocked
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Well, I had my first DEXA scan in 2017 through my primary care doctor. And the next thing I knew, I'm getting a voicemail from the doctor's nurse. I'm listening to this thing, and she's sounding so grave. And I thought, am I dying? Like, what is this voicemail? She wanted me to make another appointment with the doctor. I'm like, okay, I'll come in. And of course, the doctor's like, yeah, you got osteoporosis in the lumbar spine, and we recommend this drug. And I'm like, nope, not taking it. She's like, what? Come on, it'll help you. And I'm like, nope, I've already done the research on it. So you did ask me a question. You wanted to know if it was a shock. And I thought, you know what? No. It would have been a shock if the nurse said, you have high cholesterol or you have heart disease. That would have been a shock. But, I've been around these other doctors, these MDs and DOs and even chiropractors, but a lot of them are MDs who are whole food plant-based and they're into prevention. And so I was kind of ready for something like this. So it wasn't that much of a shock.
In the sense that you didn't really, at that point, have a kind of bone boosting exercise regimen.
Well, I thought I did. So
Yes.
the first thing I did, I talked to a friend of mine who's a chiropractor, naturopath, and functional medicine specialist. And she said, you know what? Let's work on this together. So first she got me another DEXA scan at a different place, and it actually was cheaper. So the results went to her. They were the same. So she said, okay, let's do this. Let's focus on supplements and exercise. And she had already been studying this, like what's really working for people to build real bone. One of the things that she got me going on was a supplement called Grow Bone System from Garden of Life. It's very similar to Algae Cal, very similar ingredients, but a lot cheaper than Algae Cal, considerably cheaper. So that's one of the first things I did, and then a bunch of exercise. And then several months later, I had another DEXA scan, same place, same machine, same technician, because other people are like, oh, you got to use the same machine, you got to use the same technician. Okay, I did. And my lumbar spine went into osteopenia. So we were like, oh, great, this worked.
And that's just
But
with that supplement.
well, the supplement and, paying a little more attention to my diet, like, okay, little things crop in here, there, cheap foods. But then the exercises, first there was a study on jumping that
Yes.
said, and it was looking at younger women who maybe had osteopenia or whatever, but they had real bone growth from jumping. And the best results were from doing 20 jumps with a little bit of time in between. So I started doing that and some other impactful exercises. Now, Dr. Shostak has said in some of my videos on exercise, the only people who should be jumping are women in osteopenia or whose osteoporosis isn't too bad. Mine wasn't too bad. But if you have bad osteoporosis, like in all three places, or it's a big number, then don't do jumping. It's too impactful. But there are a lot of other things we found that are also somewhat impactful without being at risk, like stomping, march walking, walking with a weighted vest, and of course, resistance exercises
Mm.
and weightlifting, which I was already doing. And these things can be done by a lot of women. And even if their osteoporosis is, more severe than mine was. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a couple of things just to cycle back because people will be wondering, well, what was it about that supplement? Now, it's not one I'm familiar with, but it contains calcium and a form of calcium that's more bioavailable. Is that the idea behind the kind of algae-based
Yeah.
calcium?
Yeah, it's a plant-based.
Mhm.
And I did watch your video where you interviewed another woman who had an osteoporosis diagnosis, and
That's
she
right.
was warning about the calcium. But I'm like, wait a minute, calcium. So I looked up all the different kinds of calcium. There's calcium carbonate, calcium citrate, calcium gluconate, calcium lactate, calcium phosphate, and others. And some of those can form around the heart area, okay, and create a problem. But not all of them do that. Now, I did find that there aren't a whole lot of studies on the algae-based calcium,
Yeah.
but we believe that the algae-based calcium didn't form around the heart. And we were saying this, Dr. Shostak and I, in multiple videos. So then finally we said we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to go get a cardiac calcium score CT scan. And we did that in September 2023,
You had
just to
it.
see, well, yeah, we've been taking this Garden of Life, with
Hmm.
calcium, or
Hmm.
sometimes you can just buy a separate calcium from Garden of Life or some of the others that are algae based, just to see, what's going on with our hearts. Well, we both got a score of 0, which is a perfect score
Wow.
in our 60s, which is pretty good. It's not a scan you go run out and do every year or two. It's something that you do once in a great while. And it just helped us, take away any fear that we were doing that to our heart. So it's a good scan to get, but people need to be mindful about what kind of calcium they're taking.
Yeah, and talk it through with their doctor or a medical professional, because all these things, sometimes it can be dependent on what else you're taking, especially if you've been given
Exactly.
medication
Right.
or
And
supplements.
yeah,
Yeah.
Denise and I weren't taking other medication,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
we didn't have that, but a lot of
Okay.
people do.
With the plant-based diet, I mean, so much good stuff in there, but is it harder to get the calcium? Do you think that is something you have to be extra mindful of, really? You take the supplement, but do you think that was probably missing in the diet beforehand?
No, because we get calcium from a lot of our greens
Hmm. Hmm.
and broccoli and things like that.
And you
The
were being
green.
mindful, yeah, about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I've had blood work done, my calcium has never been low.
Yeah. So what were the changes that you saw? I mean, you had that DEXA scan back in 2017. When did you have your next DEXA scan and what did it
Let's see.
show?
November 2021, when the numbers went down, that's when I did the last one. And then I made the video in January of that year saying, okay, here are my numbers. I was waiting for Dr. Shostak to come out. She's so busy. So she couldn't come on with me. I'm like, fine, I'm just going to make my own video and tell people about my results.
So what would that be classed as, that kind of improvement in your bone health from having the original diagnosis of osteoporosis? Where had you moved to in that time?
It just goes down to in the osteopenia. So
Osteopenia, yeah,
osteopenia is from negative 1.0 to negative 2.5. And
yeah.
anything over 2.5 they consider to be osteoporosis. Now you have mentioned, and I don't know if they have these in the UK, the REMS echolite.
I think the other lady that I interviewed paid
Yeah,
for that herself, so she had that in the
right.
UK. Yeah.
But I am a member of a group that's always looking into how to reverse osteoporosis
Mm.
naturally, and they love it. They just think it's more accurate than the
I'm
DEXA.
tempted to do it actually. I mean, I've had bloods taken and so on where they can give you, that some markers around that, but I would love to just get the scan done actually. I think I probably will just do that and
Yeah, I'd
yeah.
love to know, personally from you, how it went and what you thought of it. And
Well, I mean, it was so neglected with me for so long, I mean, it's only really in the last year or so that I'm doing any weight bearing exercise for a start. I've done a lot
Mhm.
of sitting, hunched over laptops, writing novels and articles and so on. So it is something I worry about a bit less now that I'm doing all this weightlifting, but I think I need
Yeah.
to find out.
Well, I used to do running, not much, but I enjoyed it. It made me feel good, the aerobic. And then I switched to race walking. But then in 2014, I had an incident where all of a sudden I had all this pain in my lower spine. And then come to find out it's from foraminal stenosis, which I probably had all my life. And it took about 7 or 8 months to stop having pain. And then I asked my physical therapist, can I go back to race walking? And he goes, no, because the motion of that is going to stir that up in the lower spine. I said, can I go back to running? And he kind of winced like, no, no.
What was the spine condition that you just mentioned there?
It's called foraminal stenosis,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in L4, L5. some of it is still there, but I'm not in any pain. And so I did physical therapy, which I still do the exercises today. And then Dr. Shostak, she sent me an article back then that was written by an MD who was into homeopathy and how she had worked with certain patients of hers who had spinal stenosis. But as soon as I opened it, this is in like 2014, I opened it, it's homeopathy, and I'm like, homeopathy, schmopeopathy. I'm not going to read that. And then I saw her and she said, "Did you read the article yet?" And I'm like, no. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it. She sent it to me. I was blown away. It was this MD who got into homeopathy and she figured out it was kind of a brand new protocol, but for patients of hers who had spinal stenosis anywhere in the spine, could be in the neck, mid spine, lower spine, but they had spinal stenosis because of bony growths, which you can only see from an MRI. So she gave them these two things to take that were homeopathic. And then over time, their pain went away. And only one of her patients had a second MRI and all the bony growths were gone. So I did a video about this years ago, and I've done a few others because my first video didn't have good audio quality. Between the exercises and the homeopathic treatment, my pain eventually went away.
How interesting. I will link that below for people. If you can share that video with me and a couple of the others that
Well,
you've mentioned, we'll link them below.
so I still have to be a little careful. Like I said, my PT said, no, don't take up running and race walking again because the movement's weird.
You now obviously have several decades of healthy eating behind you, which is great. You are doing weight training.
Mhm.
What else do you do exercise wise? You do a little bit of swimming.
No, I had to cut that out.
That was just occasional.
Because of the low, yeah, because of the lower spine. I walk my dog, but she's only 4 pounds. What I need to do, I have a little doggy pack, which is kind of like a weighted vest. And I need to put her in there sometimes and just so I can walk faster because she's tiny. So she doesn't walk fast like maybe your dog walks a little faster. The other thing I'd like to do, but we found that it doesn't change bone health. The rebounder doesn't build bone. It's great for your lymph system. And I love to buy a rebounder. And I've looked into some and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd love to get a Jump Sport Pro. That's the smaller one with the bungees. That's what I'd like to buy.
I get
I don't
asked a
have a lot
lot
of
about
room.
rebounding and to do something on rebounding. I did wonder that though about the bones, if it didn't have sufficient impact, would you be better jumping basically?
You do both, really. Yeah. So the jumping I just do in between other things that I'm doing.
You'll be aware, like me, with all the people that you've spoken to over the years, and also just, looking at the kind of doctors and scientists that appear on YouTube and social media and so on. There is so much conflicting information, and I'm always trying to do a job sort of filtering for the audience and
Mhm.
bringing them kind of mainstream evidenced advice rather than the theories that are emerging out of smaller studies and are then being spun off into some great new, diet regimen, extreme diet regimen or whatever. I mean, what's your personal view on that and how you've arrived at the right approach for you in terms of sort of supplements and diet and so on?
That is such a great question. I think because I've been following so many of these other doctors for years, right? Since 98, 99, 2000, I already had in my mind that I'm filtering out all the other noise. So that was pretty easy for me to do when I hear other things. I My diet isn't as great as some of these others, like I mentioned, the Esselstyns and Furman and Dr. Goldhammer. My diet isn't as good, as clean, but it's close. Now, the thing is about food, it's so emotional. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of people would rather take pills and keep eating whatever diet they love than change their diet and not need the pills. I'm not one of those people. So, you have a choice.
Well, I think what I found extraordinary, because I was somebody who in my 20s had eating disorder.
Mm,
I hardly ate, and then I would binge and bring it all back up. And I mean, that was a
mm,
cycle for years. And that's because had been a skinny teenager and then put on weight with all the kind of drinking. I'm in the UK, big drinking culture, and just not eating right when I was at university. And I just didn't know what to do about it. It was years before I got my head around. Just naturally, I actually prefer to eat things like salads and fruit. I mean, that's the one piece of luck I had. And I think when I started to go just with the foods that I kind of more naturally enjoyed and was cooking more for myself, I noticed how my weight just became very, very regular. And I also noticed how I stopped craving
mm,
food. But also, I think one of the key drivers of my eating disorder was loneliness. It all kind of
mm,
stopped when I met my husband. Having a family, these were the things that kind of saved me at the end of the day. But I can really relate to people who find it very, very difficult to get their eating under control. There's a
mhm,
there's a lot of habit built in there.
mhm.
Switching to a whole food diet, I think people would be amazed if they're not currently doing it at the moment. A lot of people who follow us will be eating probably healthy diets, but for those who still are leaning on the processed stuff because they don't have time to cook and so on, making
Mhm.
those changes, you would be amazed at how much fuller for longer you feel and how easy it is to actually stick to it once you get going with it.
One of the things that you asked me was like, how do I stay consistent? Well, I like good food. I like food. And I have some tried and true recipes I've made for years, and I have some that are brand new. I like to try new recipes and just see, do I even like this? Is it good? Even though it's good, do I enjoy making it? If I don't enjoy making it, I don't care how good it is. And you asked me about like sugar, like, oh, that you love sugar. I come from a sweet tooth people family. We
Yeah, me
love our
too.
desserts. We just love our desserts. And my mom in particular, for her breakfast was more like coffee cake and didn't have a dessert. But she ended up getting dementia. Anyway, I now have a bunch of recipes for desserts that use like a sweetener might be dates. And in fact, last week I got a new recipe for sweet potato mousse. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
it's
that's so
so
up my
good.
street. That's what we do here. We do crumbles using pecans and fruit crumbles and that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, the sweetener is a date paste that I made the day before. I used about half of the date paste in the recipe. And then to top it off, again, trying to get away from dairy, uh, one of the things I found I love, which was a little shocking to me, is coconut cream. I don't even like coconut. But coconut cream and making a coconut cream topping was amazing. And I'm going to tell you real quick how to make it. And I even bought two show and tell. One is coconut milk. This is a great brand, the Arroy D.
okay.
Um, and in the UK, you might get different brands, but you just have to
Yeah, but
experiment.
we've got the coconut milk. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Then this one is coconut cream. So fortunately, a lot of times this is really expensive, but at the grocery store near where I live, it's $2.19. Now
Mm-hmm.
the trick is you buy these in advance and you put them in the refrigerator. And I
Okay.
don't mean just 24 hours. I mean just leave them in there 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
4 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks. And then when you're ready to make it, you just open the can and it will have separated the solids from the liquid. Save the liquid to make a smoothie, but scoop the solids out, put them in a mixing bowl, and you're going to put in 1 tablespoon of vanilla and 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, the real
Mm-hmm.
maple syrup, not log
Mm-hmm.
cabin or what, the fake maple syrup we have in the States, the real stuff. And then you whip it with the whipping beaters for a minute. And then you scoop it all into a container, like a Tupperware container, and put it in the refrigerator for several hours because it still needs to tighten up a little bit. And then that's the topping.
What do you put that on a topping? for? Do you make like a, I don't know, do you have banoffee pie over there? It's like heaven sent, but I
Oh yeah,
make, yeah. And
yeah,
instead of the
that's kind of
toffee, I
sweet.
use a
Well,
date paste.
on top of this mousse, I was
Mm.
putting it, the sweet potato mousse. Or
Oh,
I also
yes.
make, do you guys have chia seeds? Pretty,
Yes.
yeah, okay. So I have a chocolate banana chia seed pudding, and the topping on top of that is so good. I also have a raw blueberry pie. I finally made that a couple weeks ago. I thought I haven't, blueberry season's almost over. I need to make
Mm.
my raw blueberry pie. Because again, it's not as sugary and doughy as a regular blueberry pie, but it's so good.
And where do you share your recipes on your website?
Some are on my website, some are on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So going back to when I changed my diet and I started having these great results, family and friends were listening a little bit and they wanted to know what I did. So I'd give them a copy of Mary Lou Henner's book. So they'd try it, and a few succeeded and did really well and stuck with it, and a few didn't. They got discouraged and they quit. And I thought, why are they getting discouraged and quitting? And I figured some things out. And based on that, I developed a course called Kickstart Your Health. And the course is videos and PDFs and a recipe book that helps people do the same thing I did, but step by step, because I want them to stay encouraged, lose some weight,
Mm.
start feeling better, developing good habits, and then keep encouraged and not quit. And of course, if you lose weight and you feel better, that is such an encouragement right off the top.
So we need to look out for those recipes. I can link to a few below as well. I need to ask you about hormonal health. I mean, some women take menopause hormone therapy, others don't. What camp are you in?
I had my last cycle 13 years ago. And basically, for me, I just get a little too hot at night. So I haven't done HRT, but I've listened to women who have, and it's been life changing for them. So, if it helps you, why not try it? And
Yeah,
then this chiropractor who's by me, who lives near me, they do something called Biote, Biote, and they're little pellets that they put into, I think, into the hip or whatever. And they have men and women patients who do this, and they swear by it, changing
interesting.
everything for them, yeah, health wise. But if you do need them, why not give it a try?
I low dose, I mean, I micro dose estrogen, as we call it here. You call it estrogen over there, just to try and keep kind of regulate my menopause symptoms because I shout out at night. I get night terrors.
Oh,
Yes, I'm very noisy at night. Something disturbs me and I must wake up. And when I open my eyes at first, it's like my brain hasn't caught up. So I start seeing stuff and I'll grab my husband. And I mean, it's absolutely tormented by me going, this is it. This is it. Oh God, it's happening this time. And then, oh, no, I'm fine. It's okay. And then I'll go back to sleep and he'll be lying there going, oh God. So
oh,
if I microdose it, I'm okay, but it's taken me a long time to get that right. I've switched between gel and patches because actually the
yeah.
estrogen, it's powerful. So if you don't get the amount
Mm.
right, I got all kinds of other symptoms, gut problems and all the rest of it. So I'm just balancing it out now. But I think for some it's kind of miraculous, life-changing, and for others like me, it's kind of like it's more of a balance of which is the lesser evil. You know,
Mhm.
behaving like a maniac at night and screaming and shouting, or just trying to take a low amount to get the edge off my madness.
Oh my gosh. I did notice a body change once I turned 65. There's something, I don't
Right.
know. I didn't have much change at 40, but that
Mm-hmm.
was right after I changed my diet. So through my 40s, I was kind of like maintaining a little bit of change after menopause, of course. And I just noticed this summer when, I'm working out maybe at home with shorts, I'm like, how did my legs skin start looking so weird? But I'm like, yeah, stuff is just changing faster in the body now than it was in the past. I used to have my legs were more toned, but now I would need to do even heavier weights or, find a different aerobic thing to do to keep them toned. They're just looking a little bit more old lady. Yeah.
Well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, I actually put a little short out yesterday because this just really struck me. I had seen a biohacker interviewed, and he came out with this great statement, which was, "If I'm aging, I'm failing." And I thought, it's like, the fable, The Emperor's New Clothes. You're sitting listening to these people and you're thinking, do you really think you're not aging? We can all see you're aging. How do you think you're going to stop it? You can slow it down. You can stay strong. You can eat well. You can hopefully
Mhm.
have a full life for life, but you're gonna age and and
Yeah,
things are gonna change. I
right.
can't get my head around this dialogue that is really building in volume around, you just stay strong and take 100 supplements and this, that, and the next thing, and you will not age. This crazy talk.
You can slow it down. A lot of us are proof of that, but you can't stop it. You're not going to be immortal. And I was listening to another video interview and you mentioned biohackers and I thought, so are the biohackers eating food that they don't enjoy? Because like I said, I like food and I like good tasting food. And if I wasn't eating good tasting food and doing tons of supplements, that would take out a piece of joy for me.
There is so much evidence around that about just social connection and happiness and enjoying life, and it has to be a fine balance. It cannot be, I don't think, that you can thrive off an extreme for decades and just expect the body to love it and follow suit. I need to ask you about your skincare. There will be a lot of people looking at your beautiful skin in your 60s right now, and I know that you talk about this on your channel, but give us a little overview of what you think really works for you. What do you use, a lot of products, or where are you on that?
I wouldn't say I use a lot, but I would say that the first thing that I saw a huge difference in my skin was years ago when I started using a full spectrum sunscreen on my face every day, 365 days a year, even though I live in a colder climate. Because back in the mid 90s, they were just starting to come out with some.
Hmm.
They were either UVB blocking only, but not UVA with the active ingredients. So that's been a game changer. The second thing that I think was a game changer for me was adding vitamin C serum, a 20% vitamin C serum. And about 6 months into it, I started noticing my skin just looked brighter and smoother, like it hadn't. And in fact, I use a picture of my dad and me when like in my intro video or some other times if I'm talking about health. And it was about a year before my dad had his first stroke. So I think it was 52 and I was 17. But you can see my skin, and I didn't really have pimples, but it was just blotchy. My skin
Hmm.
didn't look great. So I think just having more options of really good skincare from a variety of companies
Yeah.
has been really helpful. You asked me in a email question that people haven't seen, but you asked me if there any splurge that I think is worth it. Well, one splurge
Yes.
that I really like is a company that does stem cell skincare. And of course, my
Mhm.
first question when I found them was, where do the stem cells come from? Theirs come from the umbilical cords of a deer, a particular kind of deer. So,
I use it too. Callison.
yeah, yeah, I
Ah,
love
that's,
that.
yeah, I do. I use that as well daily.
Yeah, that's
And
a great company. And I think a lot of my viewers have been buying it and they like and they've been repurchasing.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good stuff. Like you say, comes from the umbilical cords of red deer. And actually, when I interviewed one of the executives from the company, it was a couple of years back now, but he said at that point, only one umbilical cord had been used because, of course, there's billions of these
Oh,
cells in there. Only
okay.
one umbilical cord had been used because I think a lot of people were like, oh, they're breeding these red deer for their umbilical.
Oh,
No, no,
oh.
they
And they
use.
repeat it. Okay, I see.
Well, there are billions of stem cells in every umbilical cord. So one
Hmm.
umbilical cord does, mountains of products.
Yeah.
My dad and my husband used it on their thinning hair. They do a hair serum. My husband has thick hair. It was just beginning to thin. So he got good results, but they weren't as obvious to people. When my dad, who was nearly bald at the back of his head, started using it, he hasn't got a thick covering now, but he has a covering of hair in his 80s. It's
Wow.
extraordinary stuff. So I thought if it does that to their hair, I'm using it on my face. When I don't use it, because of my hormonal status at the moment, you can
Mhm.
see these little like rosacea spots sometimes crop up
Oh.
here. And so I have to get back on it because it does something for the inflammation in my skin.
So something like that is a splurge.
Exactly. I mean, the SPF is an absolute game changer. I think what a lot of people don't know is that there are studies out there that show that just using the SPF is not only protective, but it has a sort of slightly regenerative effect because your skin is no longer having to kind of battle the elements.
The interesting thing is during the summer, unless I'm at the beach or at the pool, I don't wear sunscreen on the rest of my body. So I am getting my sun vitamin D when I walk the dog or whatever. I'm a freckle faced, freckle body person. I don't know where they came from because no one else in my family has freckles, but I got them. So it makes my hands look kind of old. So I've been doing some treatments on my hands that are even there are certain products I can't use on my face because
Hmm.
my skin just says, no, I can't do retin A, I can't do retinol, I can't
Right.
do alpha hydroxy acids on my
Okay.
face. My face just rebels. And a lot of people can do those three things and have great results. I can do beta hydroxy, but some of these other things that I said I can't use on my face, I've been using on my hands, which means I need to wear sunscreen on my hands. I'm going outside with the dog a lot. Someone else on YouTube said she's been keeping a sunscreen stick with her dog's things. I'm like, that's brilliant. Instead of putting lotion sunscreen on my hands and having that mess, I just take the stick and put it on the backs of my hands before I go out and take the dog. But the rest of my body, I let myself get sun because
Yeah,
sun is actually good for us.
exactly. How about devices and red light? Do you use anything like that?
I do. I use the microcurrent and nanocurrent zip, which I know you have. I love the zip. That's awesome. I also use laser therapy, and I recently had a video go up about another product I'm using, which is more skin. It's not a
Okay.
deep thing. And then I love microneedling like once a week. I love microneedling before using the calcium.
Yes. Do you microneedle with the calcium serum or you just microneedle and then put your moisturizer on
I microneedle first
and
and
then
then
put
I
your
do the
moisturizer?
calcium. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I also love red light therapy.
Yeah,
So,
very similar to me. Can I ask about, just your mindset? We talked about joy.
mhm.
Do you have any meditative or religious, spiritual practices, something that you feel helps with mental health and just enjoyment of life?
So every day I spend between 30 minutes and 60 minutes in prayer. It might seem like a lot, but over time I've been able to do that much time. And I'm a Christian, so for me, it's not a religion, it's a relationship with God. And prayer is a big part of that.
I can't let you go without asking, A, please don't give up YouTube. Keep going because I know that your viewers absolutely love what you're doing. But what can we expect from you in future? Where do you going to keep going with the same, or have you got some ideas for where you want to take it?
One thing I've been wanting to do is live streams. So as we're filming, I'm going to do my first live stream this Sunday, which by the time this goes live, it might be past because it's Sunday, September 7th. But I want to do them more regularly so that people can come on and chat and ask me questions and we can talk about various things. So this weekend we're going to talk about osteoporosis. We're going to talk about being over 50. I want to find some niche topics about being over 50 that we can talk about, because there's always somebody new turning 50 and they want to know, okay, you're 65, how are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then talk about some products, and I'm going to do a giveaway. So that's one of my newest things. And then the second thing, I would like to do more exercise videos. I did one recently on what's called the horse stance. It's kind of like when you back yourself against a wall, the sitting against the wall. It's
Yes.
kind of like that, but it's a horse stance. And within a couple weeks, I had like 60,000 views on it. So I thought, okay,
Wow.
people want more of these
Yeah.
kinds of things that build up something in your body that helps you be younger, quote
That you
unquote.
can
It's,
do at home and doesn't cost a lot of money. And that's always the thing that I'm trying to look at for people, just trying to make it accessible. So it's not
yeah,
about going out and spending a fortune to buy this piece of equipment or whatever, but
right,
something we can all do. No, that's great. We'll
right.
look out for that. Glory,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I've loved
Thank
it. And
you. Thank you. I'd love to see some of your viewers over at my channel, Glory BTV.
well, we're going to be sending them your way to check out what your recipes for a start. I'm going to be looking at your blueberry. Was it a blueberry cobbler?
It's raw blueberry pie. Now, a lot of my recipe videos are very old, so it's a little old-timey YouTube, you know.
Okay, good.
But
Traditional.
yeah,
We'll take a look. Thank you so much, Glory.
thank you.
So just a few quick pointers around the current consensus for protecting and improving bone density. So while there isn't one concrete evidence diet for bones, experts say well-planned omnivore or plant-based diets can both work as long as they hit total nutrition targets, especially calcium, vitamin D, and adequate protein. I'll link below to the evidence-based advice from the International Osteoporosis Foundation, which I'd encourage you to read. We should also train our bones, as Glory said. The strongest evidence supports regular resistance training or weight-bearing exercise, plus appropriate impact training, depending on your fracture risk, which it's important to take advice on. And if your fracture risk is high, you want to take extra care over your treatment protocol and discuss it with a medical professional. In the description box below this video, just click where it says more to open that up. You'll find a link to Glory's channel and her natural dessert recipes, which sounded so good. And I'll also include a link to a review I wrote detailing what happened when my dad and I used the calcium stem cell derived products discussed with Glory there, if you want further information on them. In fact, we still use them 2 years on. Do let us know as well what you took from today's conversation in the comments. And for now, thank you for being here.